indigenous land of Coast Salish peoples who have reserved treaty rights to this land, specifically the Duwamish and Snoqualmie Indian tribe. We thank these caretakers of this land who have lived and continue to live here since time immemorial. Traditionally, our fall breakfast has been an opportunity for business leaders to gather, connect, and learn about highlights within our cityscape and the happenings at BAM. In an effort to ensure that all feel welcome, we've rebranded this annual gathering as BAM's Community Breakfast. And we want to really welcome the convergence of the public and private sector, community members, BAM donors, docents, advisory members, and all of us who are here this morning. So while we're virtual this morning, hopefully we'll be in person soon, we wanted to make sure we took public health and safety into account. BAM's doors are open to the public, and we hope we'll be seeing you at the museum soon. In fact, today's program, highlighting the East Side's evolving and expanding landscape, is inspired by BAM's biennial 2021 Architecture and Urban Design, which opened to the public last Friday. And hopefully you'll get in to see the exhibition, and please check out the review in the Seattle Times, which was great, so you'll get a sneak peek. Before we turn our attention to the program portion of our event, I want to be sure everyone is aware of an exciting way for you to double your impact for BAM. The museum's board has put in place a one-to-one match of all donations at this year's breakfast up to $20,000. So I hope you will consider making a donation of any amount that's meaningful to you in support of BAM's exhibitions and educational programs. Our suggested donation of $365 provides a year of support at $1 per day. And with this special match, that $365 becomes $730. I believe a link will be shared in the comment section on your screen. So there it is, I see it right now. And if you're joining us via live stream, you can head over to bellevuearts.org to donate. So at this point, I'd like to turn the program over to our moderator and BAM's associate curator, Lane Eagles. And just a quick intro, before joining BAM, Lane served in curatorial and collections roles at the Henry Art Gallery, Museum of Pop Culture, and the Burke Museum. She also has taught visual studies courses at Seattle Pacific University and Cornish College of the Arts. And she earned her BA in art history from the University of Oklahoma and her MA and PhD in art history from the University of Washington. We're very lucky to have her. And with that, I will hand it over to you, Lane.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you for that awesome introduction. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. We are so grateful that you are joining us virtually. Like Karen said, we hope that we can see you in person in the museum soon. At this point, I would like to welcome all of our speakers. So speakers, if you could unmute, and yeah, awesome. Great to see you. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you all so much for joining us on this morning. So what we're going to do first is I'm going to introduce everyone, and then we will get to our panel. We'll get to our questions. So without further ado, one of our speakers, Tim Campbell, is a principal and senior project manager at GLY Construction. He has been with GLY since 2004, when he returned to the Northwest after spending some time in Colorado. He has a hand in a variety of market sectors that plays a key role in the firm's residential and mixed-use projects. With experience in a wide range of project types, he adapts quickly to evolving trends and changing needs. He applies this skill as a father of 2 young daughters as well. Thank you, Tim, so much for being here this morning.
Thanks.
Next up, we have Kemper Freeman. As a principal owner of Kemper Development Company and hands-on leader of the development team, Kemper Freeman Jr. has earned a national reputation as a civic leader and businessman with integrity and a win-win philosophy. He has been engaged in real estate development in Bellevue since the 1960s. Mr. Freeman continues his family legacy of community service with his decades of support for the arts, human service, and education in Bellevue and the East Side. philanthropic endeavors include co-chairing the $25 million capital campaign to build the Bellevue Arts Museum and millions of dollars in cash donations and in-kind support to such valued organizations as Bellevue Lifespring, formerly Overlake Service League, that is located in Bellevue Square, Bellevue Arts Museum Arts Fair, Overlake Hospital and Medical Center, Youthside eServices, Seniors Making Art, and Eastside Heritage Center. Thank you, Kemper, so much for being here this morning.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Joydeep Hazra. Joydeep Hazra is a Director of Engineering and Operations and has worked in over 30 countries in Asia, Europe, and the Americas, leading various multifunctional and multicultural teams to promote technology. He grew up in New Delhi, India, and has a Bachelor's of Engineering and a Master's degree in Finance. He spent 6 years in Finland, which had a deep impact on his life as it taught him perseverance and respect for nature. He has co-chaired the YouthLink board for the last 6 years, and he advises the Bellevue College Enterprises Advisory Committee. He likes cooking shows and trying new recipes. Joydeep is passionate about reducing youth homelessness and increasing youth entrepreneurship. His wife is Chinese American, and together they have a trilingual daughter. They all love the natural beauty of Bellevue and the strength of Bellevue's diversity. Thank you, Joydeep, so much for being here this morning. And last but not least, we have John Savo, AIA. John Savo is a principal with NBBJ in Seattle and a leader of the firm's commercial and corporate practice. For over 35 years, John has been leading urban architecture projects that emphasize innovation, historic preservation, and sustainability. He has been particularly active in the tech sector, having delivered large corporate office projects for Microsoft, Adobe, Vulcan, and more recently, the multi-block Amazon in the regrade HQ1, which features the iconic Amazon spheres. He is currently principal in charge for the design of HQ2 for Amazon in Arlington, Virginia. Thank you so much, John, for being here. All right. Thank you all so much for joining this panel. So we're just going to keep this simple. We're all virtual, right? But we're all so happy that you guys could join us this morning, and we want to learn all about your background and your experience and your connection with architecture and urban design, the theme of this year's biennial. So, what I want to do first is I have a question for all of you, and we're just sort of going to go round robin. I will call you out one by one because these virtual platforms can get awkward a little bit sometimes, right? I also want to encourage the audience, if you have questions, please feel free to type those in the comments. We will have a little bit of time at the end, as long as everything works out timing-wise, to ask questions, which I will prompt as well. So yeah, if you have questions for our awesome panelists at some point during the discussion, type them in the comments and we can get to those at the end. So yeah, let's dive in. Okay, so I'm going to be asking each of you, tell us a bit about yourself and your background in architecture, urban design, engineering, what brought you to these fields. So Tim, why don't we start with you? Tell us a little bit about your background and what inspired you to join this field.
Yeah, thanks, Lane. So I grew up at a very young age working in my family's lumber business. So I grew up in a lumber yard. I was exposed to a lot of really neat people in the building industry in the town I grew up in. I'm also married to a civil engineer, and so we're pretty ingrained in this industry. You may think that would create a relatively one-dimensional family, but I believe it actually really creates an interesting lens for people that know us, and also our two daughters. If our children decide to follow in our footsteps, I think that would be great. But I also hope that aspects of what brought us to the field is what brings them to it as well. And things like the amazing people that we get to see every day, the nonstop challenges, and the change that's always ongoing, and we're seeing it every day here. Growing up, we would drive to places like Bellevue and Seattle to get exposure to cool architecture and significant buildings and urban settings. And I just think it's an amazing treat for people moving into the city of Bellevue to be able to live amongst that area. So I think it's really neat, and I look forward to my kids having those experiences.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah. So Kemper, same question from you. Tell us a bit more about your background in urban development. What brought you to these fields?
Okay, thank you. Well, I grew up here on the east side, and my grandfather purchased a piece of property, 10 acres in downtown Bellevue. And the very next day, the Bellevue American ran a story with all the real estate people in town saying that whoever this idiot is, he paid too much for the property. He paid 10 cents a square foot for 10 acres, and property's never been worth that, never will be worth that. So he's crazy. Nothing's ever going to happen. So on that site where nothing's ever going to happen, we've got one of the most successful shopping centers in the country, and we've gone through all kinds of different things to using at all times really good architects who bring a lot of skills from throughout the world to help us build good buildings. Everything we build starts with what is doing the research as what does the community want that it doesn't have, and that's what we've built. So we've done stage by stage, and currently we see about 30 million customers a year, which is the second busiest place outside of the airport in the Northwest. So it's a really good market, and everything that's going on in Bellevue right now is the biggest boom town probably in the United States, with 17 million square feet of Class A office being built, and most of it's already spoken for. So that would be a huge amount in any city in America. So it's an exciting time to be here, and very proud to be part of this community.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Kemper. Okay, Joydeep, tell us a bit more about your background in engineering, urban design more widely.
Yeah, so as an engineer, I had to study civil engineering as a part of my course, and I was interested in buildings, why buildings go up a certain way in a certain place. And as I traveled around the world, I was always curious about the city architecture. And coming with that, when I came to Bellevue, one of the finest things that I saw that keeps me intrigued even today is rooftops. We have one giant Pacific Northwest, but if you're someone like me curious, I always look at people's roofs. Why are they certain slant? What is the stuff they put on that? Is it a metal? Is it a shingle? Is it a 5x8? Is it a flat roof? So, it kind of tells me how the city evolved over the decades, as Kemper has seen much more than me. And also, it also tells me as the new buildings come up, the old ones go down. It tells us how the city is transforming with the different kind of windows, doors. So, the civil engineering of people's minds and the architects also tells us how we are transforming from new to the newer.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Joydeep. John, tell us a bit more about your background as an architect and in this region in particular. How did you come to that field?
So I'm maybe an exception in some case besides Joydeep is in that I was a Navy brat, and so kind of all over the country and the world at times. That said, I was born at Sandpoint Naval Air Station. So while my family moved away 6 weeks later, I was like the salmon. I eventually came back, first for the University of Washington, later for other purposes. But I'm not someone who knew what he was going to do early in life. I thought I was going to be an astronomer, an oceanographer, studied oceanography for a couple of years. That brought me to the UW, got a degree in history. But just to show how old I am, in 1969, I was a newly minted naval flight officer and headed off to an aircraft carrier. And I got lucky that before sending me to the Gulf of Tonkin, they sent me to the Mediterranean. And the first port was Barcelona. And for me, it was a revelation, just seeing what a city could be. And it wasn't just the architecture, it was the urban design, it was the character, it was the integration of nature and the relationship of the city and the water. And I went away and 2 weeks later wrote to my relatively new bride and said, I know what I want to be. So it took another 7-8 years before I could get my master's in architecture, but did it. And now I've had a 45-year career. I worked in Boston, worked in New York. First got introduced to the idea of museum design, frankly, in New York when I was working for Marcel Breuer Associates, who did the Whitney Museum, which then even got named after him as the Met Breuer for a while, which was kind of fun. But I've been in Seattle now for quite a long time, and 36 years at NBBJ, and working not just in Seattle, but quite a bit in Bellevue. And some of the projects may come up as we talk about it. But Bellevue is a key urban environment and city in our community in the Pacific Northwest. You're evolving into a wonderful city. The introduction of the arts and things like the Bellevue Art Museum has been critical. And so a little bit of background, but I will mention the last decade or two has been mainly in the tech industry. As you mentioned, Microsoft, Adobe, but more recently, Amazon, and that includes the Bellevue 600 projects, phases 1 and 2 that we're doing in Bellevue.
Wow, great. Yeah, we are all very familiar with those iconic spheres. Very cool. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all so much. It's really fascinating to learn more about your backgrounds. Okay, so these next questions, I just sort of want to grow. I want to grow organically. So anybody jump in whenever you feel like you have a great answer. I'm so excited because you all work in similar fields, but they're all nuanced and faceted in different ways. So whenever you have follow-ups, just don't hesitate to jump right in. So one thing that we've already touched on in your intros and in your backgrounds is that Seattle and the East Side, Bellevue in particular, has experienced this really explosive growth over the past decade or so, even longer. Like Kemper said, it's one of the sort of premier cities in the region in terms of population explosion, in terms of urban reshaping, things like that. The city is literally being redesigned all around us constantly. I read, some quote recently that at one point Seattle had more cranes than active cranes than any other city in the country. So I sort of want to start with that broad question. How has this rapidly changing urban landscape around us changed how you approach your field? How has it made you rethink your field or rethink your training in any way that you found surprising or unexpected? What are some projects that you've seen as really pivotal to these, explosive urban changes and architectural changes that are happening around us?
Everybody's so shy.
Well, I just
jump right in.
I shouldn't jump right back.
I'll just start. For me, one of the things that we're constantly dealing with is all of this rapid change is happening. We're constantly having to pivot and think through, what is that driving in terms of priorities and decisions that people like Kemper and John and Joydeep are making, and just making sure that we're not thinking of priorities that were, they're outdated, but only by a few months or a year, and just making sure that we're staying on top of it and keeping it relevant for them and helpful.
Yeah, I would imagine it's a lot of, rapid thinking and pivoting.
To put it in perspective, just in downtown Bellevue, it took us 40 years to have 10 million square feet of Class A office space be built by various people at various times. Now we're doing 170% more than that in less than 10 years. So it is a monster, and it's almost impossible for no matter how organized anybody is or how organized the city is or ready to handle permitting or transportation or keep the facilities running while the construction's going on. It's virtually an impossible task that we're going through right now. And I worry that if we aren't really careful, we'll mess it up just simply because people say it isn't worth the mess that it takes to build all this in this short amount of time. So that's a major challenge for each of us as developers, architects, and for the city to really take seriously how we keep everything running during the next 10 years during construction, and how do we service it after it's up and running. I've spent millions of dollars personally on transportation issues, and I can unequivocally say we have no transportation plan that will accommodate what is being built, period. And we're betting that somehow light rail opening up in sometime will do it. And yet the PSRC, the people who study this thing for the Northwest more than anybody, say that at capacity 30 years from now, light rail will carry 1% of daily trips. Trips are growing 2% a year. So trips will have grown by the time it's fully operating $30 billion from now, 1%. It is, you won't even know it opened. This growth is, so I'm saying things that nobody wants to hear, but they're the absolute truth. I've spent a fortune on this issue because if people can't get in and out of downtown Bellevue, our success is going to be short-lived.
Yeah.
This growth has been going on for a long time. It's just accelerated more recently. I know I was attracted back to the Pacific Northwest from back east where I was working, because it just every time I came back for a visit, it was better. Food was better. They learned not to just fry fish. There are other choices. You have theater, you have museums, you have better transportation. Not disagreeing with some of the things that Kemper is saying, but our cities too are becoming more walkable, more pedestrian focused. People are moving into downtown. I moved from Bainbridge Island into downtown Seattle here recently. It's something that I think, we are going to be, we've always been a somewhat nomadic people. We have to be willing to kind of move around a little bit and recognize that we can't entirely rely on some of the older methodologies in terms of how we move around. And there's a growing appetite for better design, better urban design, better architecture. Another thing that attracted me and so many people to this part of the world, people that have been here for generations, but also people that have come more recently, is this access to nature. And this idea of our love affair with nature, it's starting to infiltrate our cities and communities as well. You mentioned the spheres. That's really something all about biophilic design and providing some of the things missing in the core of a city, but just one of many different things like better parks, the idea of increasing the amount of green space and trees in the street. This is a place that's really going through change, and we see even established companies like Microsoft, that have had a very suburban kind of a campus now becoming more urban in their newer design, so that we're becoming more concentrated. And I think all those things are things for the better.
Yeah, thank you. Biophilic. I love that term. I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, it simply means that we have a natural affinity with nature. That would include animals as well as green things.
And I can expand to that. This is something I take deeply because when I lived in Scandinavia, the first thing I learned is nobody has a garage. You live in a vertical housing. And I was one of them, but I was lucky to have a parking spot. So urban transportation is extremely important because as we densify our center Bellevue, the 4th and the 8th streets are becoming bottlenecks. So one of the ways to get in, get out that I start to choose is how can I walk in? How can I bike in? And at the same time, when the train comes in, maybe I'll take the train. But outside that, I definitely see some things more based on the urban engineering. What we need to understand is our energy consumption is going up. The more people come in, they need to understand how they recycle their stuff, how much trash they generate. Because again, our streets are limited. We can't continuously send our trash trucks to collect stuff that they'll keep throwing on the streets. If you look at a big city, first thing you see next to a bus stop is the trash bin is overflowing. So when I foresee these things, we as a city also have to educate the newcomers, like this is a green living. It's Pacific Northwest. You got to understand how to preserve this place while you live in here. So there has to be a big a learning curve that people need to understand when they come in.
One thing I'd like to say is I hated to leave with the impression that it's impossible to make it work. I'm saying that as of right now, we do not have a formal plan to make it work. Since I'm determined to be alive and be successful, I've worked really hard to work with the city and everyone else to talk about transportation, and I've spent several $1 million on studies with the most knowledgeable people in the United States. Brought them in here, people who have built light rail, built transit systems, have built freeway systems, every kind of transportation system you can imagine. And we've actually, with 12 consultants, done a job for 30% less than we're now spending. 30% less than we're now spending, we can solve this problem. And it'll make the best use ever of transit. It'll make the best use of walking, bicycles, every other conceivable thing. But as of that plan has not been adapted, nor is there any plan adapted today that would work. That's all fantasy. And everybody's just looking the other way, enjoying all the mess. Sooner or later, and we can reduce congestion 40%. How's that? 40% less congestion, accommodate all new trips, and solve this problem for 30% less than we're spending today. So there in fact is a solution. Nobody seems to, in the government, seems interested at all in doing anything to make it work. They assume it's all going to work. That's a bad assumption. So sooner or later we better wake up. And it's a great economy, but it ain't going to be great if you can't get to it, or if you can't afford a house to live in, to either. So I mean, there's lots of things. All are solvable.
On that, one of the things that's front and center for us, we're constantly focused on it and having to respond to it is these urban environments get more dense and more expensive to live in. Where the workforce and the skilled trades that are building these buildings that we rely on so heavily, they seem to be less accessible. And there's obviously aging workforce and retirements that are going on, and so we're focusing really hard on just encouraging the future growth of future generations to come into the trades and the skilled and skilled labor to continue to grow and thrive, so we can keep building all these wonderful buildings.
I think both Kemper and Tim are emphasizing things that do indeed require serious planning and be able to evolve as our cities evolve. Too many of our cities around the country, have stuck their head in the sand and haven't been able to then come to the problem too late to solve it in a meaningful way. So whether it's affordable housing or whether it's transportation, the whole idea of urban design and planned transportation is critical to successful growth, because we don't want to get it locked into the situation of so many American cities now that, I won't say they're all dying, but there's a lot of them that aren't growing and have real problems that cause people to move to more successful parts of the country, such as Bellevue and cities in the West, Northwest particularly.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you all. This is also fascinating. So you preempted me a little bit, but I guess one things I'd really love to hear from all of you is, what is your vision for the future of Bellevue's architectural spaces, Bellevue's public spaces, Bellevue's green spaces, and what do you see as your particular role in that future?
Well, I did mention that I think, the automobile isn't the answer to everything, but we do need to continue to be auto friendly, just not auto dependent. And emphasizing more on the bikeability, the walkability of our cities, make housing affordable closer to the core of our cities so that you're not required to do a long commute. Those are all things I think that we really should be working more towards. There's some other things that's already happening in Bellevue, but can be emphasized, I think, and accelerated, and that is, more after hours activity in downtown. More performing arts, theaters, entertainment, museums. Those are the things that make a city and make people want to be there. And so those are another things that I think we can continue as with civic attitude to improve our cities. Also, Bellevue isn't that old, but it does have a history, and celebrating that history, but also your growing ethnic diversity, finding ways to make everybody feel welcome. And I know people do already in Bellevue to a large degree, but I think we can go even further in that respect. And find the ways you differentiate yourself from your other neighboring cities. Finish the Grand Connection, embrace Wilburton. That could be part of the city's future too. And I think that's something that I think is in everybody's mind in the background that's taking a while to get resolved, but I think it could be a really good improvement to what life is like. As far as my and our firm's engagement, we've been here for a long time, and from City Center, more recent projects, City Center 2, the Braver and Signature Residences, Bellevue's Children, the new expansion of Overlake, Spring District. We did the plan, the REI headquarters, the now Facebook, the GICS, the Global Innovation Exchange, 555, the Wilburton Neighborhood Plan. So we're here to stay because we believe in Bellevue's future, and about a third of those projects I mentioned, I was personally engaged in, and I know that our firm believes strongly that this is a key part of our region's growth.
Thank you.
One of the things I think about is just the volume of people that are going to be coming in over the next decade to work in the city of Bellevue, and then subsequently live in the city of Bellevue. And and there's just a huge need to provide excellent public spaces, which Bellevue does, and also entertainment. People are coming here with high-paying jobs and they want to raise families, and so I just think priorities on high levels of education and cultural experiences are really important. And personally, as a person, I feel like my role to supporting the schools, supporting the arts like we're doing today, and just in general the local economy to keep everything thriving like it is. One of my favorite things, I've spent quite a few years working on projects for Kemper Freeman. One of my favorite was the sky bridge that travels over, the pedestrian sky bridge travels over Northeast 8th. And I just have really great memories of when that bridge was set, being there at 2:30 in the morning and sitting up in Lincoln Square and seeing it land. And it was just so great. And every time I drive under it with my family, I say, "Hey kids, we built that building or that bridge." And they say, "Dad, you really put that steel up?" And I'm, "Well, no, but and so it's just it's those types of things that I think if they continue, that Bellevue is going to continue to be great.
Yeah.
One of the things that makes affordable housing difficult is the price of land, which is in downtown Bellevue is $600-700 to $1,000 a square foot. It made my grandfather's purchase of 10 cents a square foot look pretty good. Going back, I wish he'd bought a little more, but we have about 51 acres, so about 10% of downtown Bellevue. And but here, when we're sitting here trying to do affordable housing, and the land is in $1,000 a foot class, and building thing, and I live in a high-rise building, so I mean it took me 5 minutes to walk to work this morning. It's never congested. It works. It can work, but it is expensive to it's not everybody can afford it. Now we've got 124,000 millionaire families within 10 miles. We never talk about that. They have 124,000 millionaire families. Half that many are $2 million plus families. So there's a huge number of wealthy people here. But Bellevue, just as a city, has 20% of us, ever since I can remember, are living below the poverty line. And those are the ones that need the help the most. And to try and solve affordable housing for people like that in downtown Bellevue is a fool's gold. It's you can't. I don't know how you do it. And we keep trying to jam everything into downtown Bellevue. I was involved with a bank, and we did lots of home mortgages. And our brokers that did the home mortgages said, when it comes to affordable housing, the customer drives for every mile you drive north on I-5, 405 and I-5, you save $2,000. If you drive 10 miles, you save $20,000 on the same house. If you drive 50 miles, you save $100,000 on the same house as if you tried to do it here. So we keep trying to put things on the most expensive land and ignore the fact that if we had decent congestion relief and mobility, the commute starts in Bellevue every morning north of Mount Vernon at 6 a.m. It's stop and go in Mount Vernon, 70 miles north of here. And people drive further than that to afford a house. So 70 miles would save you $140,000 on the same house if you tried to buy it in Bellevue. So we need to recognize some of these things and not run from them, but say and people drive over from Yakima every day. I mean, can you imagine 2.5 hours? But so they're going to afford a house. But our government keeps trying to build something here for that this group that can't afford it can't afford. So it's something I just want to throw that into the mix, and if we need to talk about it, there are answers, and it's solvable. And it's and the talking and bicycles and roller skates and all these kinds of things, skateboards, and aren't going to solve it by itself. And so it's something we keep wishing and trying to do things that are not affordable to solve this problem. And there's enough money to solve it, and it's all solvable. I'll just finish with one other thing on just transportation. This is really important. What we discovered was, for several $1 million of studies of the best transportation people in the United States, that cars with ADAS systems on them, which is what a number of things like the backup camera on your car, the emergency braking on your car, the thing that says if you're on the road and you're trying to get into the left lane or the right lane and there's somebody in your blind spot, the car won't let you do it. I mean, this is far from self-driving, but there are about three devices a year that are being installed on cars that very soon that will allow 50% more cars to be able to use the existing freeways, which, by the way, carry half of all trips already. So this is a doubling of the amount of trips that you can carry on our existing infrastructure, and you can do it much safer than if we're driving the cars. We're still the driver, but with these safety devices, it is the most dramatic thing that can change transportation, and none of the planners are even looking at it. If they are, they just take a brief look and go on to something else. I mean, it's right here in front of us. And it's also part of the affordable housing problem, because you save 2,000 miles every mile you drive north or south of Bellevue. We don't even talk about such things. We can't jam everything here in Bellevue.
Right.
Well, everything does have a compromise. I mean, the counterpart to that, and I know you know it, is urban sprawl, is more cars on the road, is cars that, especially they're using fossil fuels and the issues around it. There are environmental costs when we rely on that, but I don't disagree that the issue is real and the problem is real, and we haven't found a way in our economic system to resolve it effectively yet in any city that I've seen in the United States. It's a very entrenched problem. But we also have to balance how those other factors and how we resolve it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've been driving for 7 years an electric Tesla, so my license plate says 0 emissions. So it's and that same car now Tesla sells for a fifth of what it costs me. So it is becoming affordable. The Tesla's got new models coming out for $20,000 or even less that do most of the things my $100,000 Tesla cost 7 years ago. So and these ADS systems are around now and are affordable as well. So there's more that we can do. Our transportation experts and public transportation experts aren't even looking at these ideas. They've married to other ideas. That's not a good idea, to marry an idea that doesn't work.
Yeah.
I'm going to add on to Kemper. So Kemper, you did touch the right part. That one of the things I like is these cars. So first of all, I welcome you to the Tesla Club of Northwest. My wife and I, we run that, and we are educators for the last 7 years too. So we took on this path because we believe that a lot of these, traffic stops, these bumper-to-bumper cars, a lot of these things are changing because the first car in the front controls the next 10 cars at the back. So if you take the 405, the carpool lane, if you see 10 Teslas back to back, that's exactly what they're doing. The first car is taking control, the next 9 cars hands off. And when the first car moves, the second car moves automatically. 0 to 1 second time difference, which is not the same in a gas car. So coming to that part, we have certain opportunities in the city. As the city is getting more and more dense, a lot of our stores like KFC, Walmart, all these stores put together, they can run 24/7. A lot of our transportation, if we can shift them to a time like evening hours, nighttime hours, they can come do their deliveries, they can come do their pickups, and we can eliminate a lot of these transportation headaches, not to get mixed up with our commuter traffic. And also, living in Battle Trails, I have a huge population of people who are 70 plus and younger, and they don't want to drive out after 9 a.m. They want to have their own lifestyle between 5 and 9. So we can phase the city in different lifestyles, in different time zones, and different time frames. And this way, we don't have to bump into each other between 9 to 5. And for example, I want to leave my home after 9 when I think the traffic goes down. And I spend a good amount of time on the Bellevue Road between 9 and 11. I'm zipping around not the red lights, but the green lights in my car. And, that's good fun. So we do get to enjoy the city in different time zones and different time slots. And if you all try to live 9 to 5, it's not going to be the same. And smart cities are taking these things into consideration. How do we face our demand supplies based on times, knowing the fact that our geography is not going to change, our roads not going to widen up?
One of the things that could make a big difference, even though its timeline keeps getting pushed out, and for good reason, is of course self-driving vehicles, autonomous vehicles, and that could bring a much better, more efficient future, or it could bring a horrific future, depending on how we regulate it, frankly, and how people, if everybody goes out and gets their own self-driving car and they're out on the road all day long, it could be terrible. But on the other hand, well-managed self-driving cars can resolve many of the difficulties that we're talking about. And I recently, not that recently now, it's been a year or two, but was asked to speak about kind of Gen X and the next generation, Gen Z, how they look at urban design. One of the things I found in a panel with people from that generation was that they're really looking forward to it. It really surprised me, as a generation that couldn't wait to get my driver's license and be on the road and cross the country and do all those other things. I'm finding another generation of people, a majority of them, not only welcoming but excited about the possibility of a more not having dependent on the automobile and owning one and taking care of one, but rather having it when they need it, but only when they need it, with other alternatives as well. So that's something it's a ways out there, but it is coming.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's mobility on demand. That's exactly what they're after, not 24/7.
Right. That's right.
I think one of the most important issues of this program is the place of the arts in the city of Bellevue, and the art museum is incredible. It was built by a world famous architect who I think the museum ought to feature and really make known. The great architect that designed it is world class, and any building that he had anything to do with is considered a true jewel in the community that it serves. Seattle U has one of its buildings, and you can't spend 5 seconds on Seattle U before somebody's going to say, have you come and seen this building that we have over here? And it's the same architect that built the museum here. So the museum is too many museums and things get pushed out of downtown where it's too busy or too expensive, and then the people can't get to them. But the Bellevue Art Museum's right downtown, right in the middle of everything. So it's in a perfect location, and the importance of arts to the community are just life and death. It's what makes it a great place. And I was active in we raised $25 million to build that building. The east side had never raised more than $5 million for anything when we did that, so five times the record. I'm now working with a group of people to build a performing arts center. It's a 25-year long project. We're just about ready to be able to start, and that will make a big difference. So we'll have legitimate performing arts as well as the visual arts, both in downtown, walking distance to each other. We found out in Bellevue Square we have over 50 restaurants, which we used to have 2, and those 50 restaurants now do more business than all the restaurants in downtown Seattle. Just learned that from statistic. So I mean, it used to be there were restaurants over here, but they were to get over being hungry. They weren't exciting places to go. All of the exciting places to go, emotionally satisfying places to go, were all in Seattle. And due to all these different things that have gone on, we now have over 50 in our center, and that's just our part. And downtown Bellevue has many more than that. So you no longer have to commute somewhere just to get something to eat. You can find plenty of places here. So there's some, and our Bellevue Park is amazing. It'd be amazing in any city. Downtown has all kinds of events there, and just the open space itself. If there were no events there, it would be a success, because it's a relief. It's a beautiful place to walk, or just be, or pack your lunch and go down there, etc. So I think Bellevue's on its way to some amazing things, and I'm going to say I'm enough of an optimist, so we are sooner or later going to solve the transportation problem, even though I make it sound like it. Well, I'm telling you the truth. Our government has no plan to solve it right as of today. I think it's time the private sector needs to lead that effort, because it ain't coming any other way. So we're in the greatest opportunity. We will have two of the best arts opportunities right here between the Performing Arts Center and the existing museum, and people love it. The arts fair that has been going on, if we could have had it this year, it would have been the 75th Arts and Crafts Fair. It's the largest juried outdoor art fair in the United States. And one of the things that the art fair did was it provided for decades 40% of the museum's operating budget came just from the surplus from the fair. And we have as many people come to that fair each day for 3 days as live in the city of Bellevue. So it's each day it's like the whole population of town coming Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to see the fair, and then to have it be a major producer of funds for the art museum. That's a win-win. So we're in La La Land when it comes to many, many good things. So I don't want to leave the viewers thinking that, it's just a big mess. It's always been a big mess, but we've worked hard to make sure the big mess never became the main topic. and we'll solve this one too.
Hey, Kemper, thanks for calling out to the architect for the museum, Stephen Hall.
Stephen Hall is amazing.
He is, and we're kind of close to the same generation. He's just a couple of years older, and I will say that when I first moved to New York looking for work, my first night I spent with Stephen Hall till 3:30 in the morning with another friend, just talking architecture and the excitement that he helped elevate in my own life at an early and important time as I was just starting out in the profession, or early years. And he's done some wonderful work all around the world, including St. Ignatius that you mentioned over at SU. So it's always nice when when the architect gets some attention, but it is an important asset to downtown, and the museum is why we're here. A downtown, a city, or a place, let's put it that way, without an art museum, without performance halls, without theaters, without those kinds of activities, is not a city yet, frankly. I remember once early in my career at NVJ, almost over 30 years ago, a Japanese investor coming over, and we took him out to dinner, and it was after 10 o'clock at night, and he looked around, and he said, "Nobody's on the street. Nobody's here. It's not a city yet. I'm not going to invest here." And so we got to think about, the life of the city, not only over the years, but over a day. And all those kinds of activities, the outdoor eating, the dining out, all those things that you mentioned are really critical to the lifeblood of a city.
Yeah. Thank you both so much for bringing it back to the reason why we are all here today. Bellevue Arts Museum, designed by Stephen Hall. We love our beautiful building, and we want to see it continue. I really do think that BAM is an integral part to Bellevue and an integral part to the Pacific Northwest more widely. There are some really wonderful and robust questions in the chat, but I'm afraid we won't have time to get to them because this discussion was so fascinating and so rich. So thank you all so much for being here. Thank you so much for lending your expertise to us this morning. And I am now going to turn it back over to Karen for the rest of this morning's program. So yeah, thank you all so much. We really, really appreciate hearing from you and hearing about the future of Bellevue and BAM.
Thank you, Lane.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lane, and thank you to all the panelists, Tim, Kemper, Joydeep, and John. I also do want to thank BAM staff, and in particular Jackie Mendenhall, whose behind the scenes expertise has made it possible for us to gather on this platform. That was an incredibly thought-provoking discussion. And while growth has both challenges and opportunities, I particularly like to think about the opportunities, and in particular, embracing the upsides of the growth and ensuring that a major piece of what makes a city so livable, arts and culture, is supported. So this breakfast is one of BAM's 2 annual fundraisers, and about 70% of the organizational budget depends on philanthropic support. So your donation is vital to the health and sustainability of this gem of a museum in the center of Bellevue. The only museum exclusively dedicated to art, craft, and design in Washington. So please join me by contributing and doubling your impact by making a tax-deductible donation today. We've again included that link in the comments. And if you prefer to donate outside of online giving, checks are great. Please just note 2021 breakfast on those, and that will still count towards that special one-to-one match up to $20,000. So I have a few announcements, but from the entire BAM family, we thank you for your support. And I'd love to touch a little bit about some exciting holiday activities going on. So since we're entering the holiday season, I wanted to let you know of a lot of exciting things. Our store is going to have some expanded hours. We're going to be open till 6:30 each Thursday through Sunday, starting on Black Friday up until December 23rd. You're going to be able to shop new works from 30 arts fair artists up until Snowflake Lane starts, which I think is at 7. And those are, as Kemper mentioned, arts fair is, this was going to be our 75th year. Next year will be in person. You can hold me to that. I think that's going to be the case. It's going to be amazing. 76th year. We'll celebrate big then. Speaking of Snowflake Lane, you can purchase a Snowflake Lane viewing package where you can overlook the magic of the parade with a cup of hot chocolate in your hand on one of BAM's third floor terrace, or on their third floor terrace. It's an amazing experience. If you haven't experienced it, you haven't seen Snowflake Lane, or if you've seen it, you've been one of the many on the crowd on the ground. But the terrace viewing is a special, special treat. And if you want to purchase that package, it's for 14 guests, and you get a $50 gift certificate to the store as well. I think somebody dropped that into the comment section as well. So please check it out. It would be a really unique experience to share with friends and family. Final thank you to some sponsors again. I know they flashed on the screen at the beginning, but we couldn't do what we're doing without all of these amazing sponsors. Presenting sponsors, Rebecca and Jeffrey Lyman and Laura Dillaway. Lead sponsors, First Republic Bank, Leanne and William Moore, myself and Marco Manuelo, Joan McBride and Margaret Meister, and Lee Kilcup. Our media sponsor has been the Seattle Times. Supporting sponsors, Julie and Marvin Miller and Northwest Construction. Patrons, Kemper Freeman Foundation, Darlene and John Wilsinski, Parker Smith and Feek, GLY Construction. Ambassadors Keith and Margaret Baldwin, Amy Heaton, and Barbara and Christopher Wharton. To all of our sponsors, donors, and to all of you here today, thank you so much for joining us, and we're looking forward to seeing you in person soon.
Longer live. I am going to end up closing this if nobody comes on in the next couple of seconds. Oh, hi, Karen.
Hi, Jackie. Yeah, we ended early, but that's okay. We might have had time to fit in a couple questions, but it's better. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I
yeah.
think those questions would have like elongated the conversation.
It
like,
would have, yeah,
a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but I think it went smoothly, so hopefully we will see some results from that. And thank you for managing the platform. I was having an unstable internet connection personally, but hopefully
it did not come through. It didn't come through. I
was texting my husband who's out of town. And I was like, why is the Wi-Fi not working? Why is my computer? And he was like, I will try and reset it from afar. But
oh my gosh,
I'm glad it didn't show up.
No, cool. You came through smoothly. It all worked out.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, we I've gotten that notice from Run the World before, and have also not had an issue with people seeing me. So I think they're just extra cautious, which I appreciate. But
I know it kept popping up while I was talking, and I was like, oh gosh, okay.
No,
and then
you were good.
If people were talking, it was kind of garbled, so I'm glad you couldn't tell on your end.
No, I couldn't tell on my end, and anything that did happen, I think people just have patience with virtual events.
Oh my gosh,
we
totally.
know that there's
at this point
so many variables.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. We're done by 9 a.m.